Boris was kind of like just saying it to make sure everyone did not rest on their laurels.
I mean, then
See the Nigel Farage is up there.
Well, what the big story of last night, I think, is that the Conservatives managed to consolidate the Leave vote around them, while Labour failed to consolidate the Remain vote around them. The result was a large Conservative victory, a landslide, the biggest Conservative majority in decades, winning seats in the north of England and the Midlands from Labour, while the Lib Dems failed to make gains, and the SNP made big gains in Scotland from all parties. The result is a much smaller number of Labour MPs in Parliament and Conservative MPs representing areas they've never represented before.
Right. Wow, that's incredible. That's almost like this.
Well, I think it's a really dramatic result, but it's a result that leaves the Conservative Party representing seats that they have never represented in their history in some cases. These are seats like Workington in the northwest, traditional Labour, coal mining, industrial areas. So it's a big Conservative majority, but it's a different Conservative majority than we've seen before. And the question for Boris is, how does he represent these new voters that he now has as part of his party's base, that he's never had before? Well, I think there are two things. One is that he has a majority who very much support his policies on Brexit and on immigration and on other social issues, but are not in line with the Tories' traditional values in terms of economics. If the Conservatives continue the sort of May Cameron policies of cutting welfare, of austerity, those are policies that are actually deeply unpopular in many of the new seats they've won. The second point is, how badly is Brexit actually going to go once it begins? Of course, Boris has said, "Get Brexit done" is the main slogan of his campaign. It's going to take much longer to get Brexit done than I think many of his voters actually believe, and maybe he's promised them. So the question now is, do they get disillusioned with the length and the difficulty and the complexity of the Brexit process that's about to begin? I went to bed at midnight after the Life Valley came in. I don't need to stay up now. So I think the withdrawal bill will be passed very quickly. So that's a bit like the first stage of a divorce. You go to your lawyer, you sign the divorce, but then the difficult stuff happens. You have to divide up the money. You have to work out where the possessions are going. And that is going to be the argument for the next probably 5 years. It's going to be about trade. It's going to be about regulation. It's going to be about protecting Britain's finance sector. If Britain's going to protect its finance sector, the EU is going to want something in return. And that may well be alignment on many of the regulations that Boris and his party do not want to follow. Well, I think there are a couple of things. One is what's going to happen to Northern Ireland, and the second is what's going to happen to Scotland. Northern Ireland is now going to exist outside of some of the UK's regulatory structures as part of Boris's deal, and Scotland may well say, well, we want some of that too. Don't forget the other story of the night is the SNP making big gains in Scotland. The Tories holding on to a few, but Lib Dems and Labour collapsing up there. The nationalist vote has increased. Scotland, of course, voted against Brexit, and Scotland, I think, another referendum could be on the cards.